Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar, Mini Market Update with Tina Tamboer of the Cromford Report. I'm Beth Hawley with the Arizona Association of Realtors. Tina moved to Phoenix after graduating from Virginia Tech with a BS in Finance. She started her Phoenix career in 1993 as a residential data analyst with First American Title. In 2000, she moved into sales for Capital Title Agency, where she got a personality and a deep appreciation for the Phoenix real estate community. She joined the Cromford Report in 2011 with Michael Orr and is a regular guest on That Real Estate Show at KTAR, Arizona Horizon PBS, Channel 3 and Channel 15. Today's presentation will be about 45 minutes, followed by a 15-minute Q&A. If you have any questions during the webinar, please write them in the question box as seen on your screen, and we will be sure to address them. As always, today's webinar is being recorded and will be available on our website at aaronline.com next week. So what is going on in the market these days, Tina?
Oh my gosh. Well, we have a lot going on in the market, and we're going to have a lot to go over the next 45 minutes. So I think the big thing that people are most concerned about is the lack of inventory. So we're going to address that and finding out exactly how this market is differing from other big boom markets that we've had in the past. I get a lot of people wondering if it's 2005 all over again, if we're prepping for another crash, and so we are not in that kind of market, and that's pretty much what we're going to go over today. You know, yes, it is a very good market right now for sellers, and why. So let's go ahead and get into it. My slide's not advancing. Who's working out? There we go. Okay, so this is the well duh section of the presentation. We are in a seller's market. And it looks like it's going up and down a lot there, but it's not really. It's been hanging around that 140 mark for quite some time. If we look at 2015 through 2017, we're not making any huge fluctuations. We call this a regular old normal seller's market. When you look at 2005, you can see that the Cromford Market Index was as high as 300. So the way to read this is anything over 110 is considered a seller's market, and appreciation rates will be positive over the rate of inflation. And so as you can imagine, in 2005, that was pretty insane. Right now, our appreciation rates are right around 7%, between 5 and 7%, which is way more sustainable than the 44% that we saw in 2005. So the areas of town that are the strongest seller markets, Avondale has been the strongest seller market for quite some time. Just because it says it has a little red arrow going down, it dropped a little bit. It just went from insane to slightly less insane. That's all that means. Chandler, Glendale, Tempe, and Mesa, you can see the West Valley cities and the Southeast Valley cities are in the strongest areas. Areas that have a higher price point, such as Paradise Valley, Scottsdale, and Fountain Hills, are in the lower end. And Buckeye is in more of a balance, but we're having a lot of new home construction going on in there. That is balancing out the Buckeye market right now. So just so you know, put that in perspective with Surprise, and you'll understand why Buckeye is, there's a lot more for buyers to choose from out there. So it's a nice stable market. So let's get into our supply. This is the toughest part for agents right now, is to explain the lack of supply to their buyers and make them understand why there may not be as many homes in their price point as they used to be. So under our active supply, you'll notice that in the first few weeks, first few months of every year, we generally have a more influx of new listings coming in. So you'll see the active supply swell, and then as the buyers come in the spring, it declines, it bottoms out, usually in the summer, and then it starts to grow again in the fourth quarter. This year, we did not have any swelling. In fact, it went flat, and now it's going down. So we are 14% below where we were at this time last year, and it does vary a little bit by area. So if you are in the west side cities, we're only down about 3%, but west side, they've been down. They were already down last year. We've had a shortage of supply out there for a few years now. So just because they're down 3% doesn't mean a lot. They're still really tough to find a home there. In the northeast cities, that's going to be Scottsdale, Fountain Hills, Carefree, Cave Creek, and East Phoenix. You'll see, again, we did not rise in the first quarter, we went flat. So we're down 12% from where we were this time last year in available listings. Southeast Valley and Pinal are the two most dramatic drops. Southeast Valley never even got a chance to go flat. They just went down. They just continued to go down. And Pinal, again, as well, just never really fluctuated upwards, directly went down. So we're down 24% in the Southeast Valley and 28% in Pinal for available listings. And that is really creating a lot of I don't want to say frantic, but it's quite a frenzy out there in finding a home that is in good condition and well priced. Now you can really see it amongst your price ranges. Under 200,000, we're down 34%. That's where the main drop is. Between 200,000 and 400,000, again, it's pretty flat, but you're only down about 11%. If you're showing homes between 400,000 and 600,000, there's a lot more to choose from than in the other ranges. So it's not going to be quite as tough. And if you're over 6, we're right around the same inventory levels as last year. So you can tell if a buyer now asks you how the market is, your first question should be, what's your price point and where do you want to live? Because it's going to really vary. Their whole buying experience is going to change quite a bit based on those two factors. So that brings us to new homes. If there's not enough inventory for your buyers, on the resale side, that says, okay, let's start looking for the new homes. So the good news is single-family permits are up 6.2%. We are not overbuilding by any stretch on the single-family market. You can see by 2005 we had almost 7,700 new permits by this time, by the end of February. Now we've got 2,800. We're up 6.2% over last year, but they're not at the levels that we've seen. So for people who think that we're overbuilding, they're probably living in Mesa or Peoria and they see it all over the place. But that's not the case for the rest of the valley. So from 2016 to 2017, we've had some shifts. Mesa, so far, by the end of February, has the most single-family permits issued, followed by Phoenix, followed by Buckeye. This is a big change. Buckeye's moved up from number 6 to number 3. Mesa's gone from number 2 to number 1. We've seen Peoria drop from number 3 to number 4. And Queen Creek has gone up too, number 8 to number 6 so far this year. And new to the list is the city of Maricopa and Marana towards the bottom. So you can kind of see where the builders are going out more towards the outskirts where there's available land. And obviously Phoenix is a very large city. A lot of those permits are being issued in the north side of town and also in South Phoenix. So again, the big thing for builders is trying to find enough land that's privately owned. Even though we look like we have a lot of land, only about 11 to 17% of it is available for them to purchase. The rest of it is either on the Indian reservations or it is owned by the government. So that does create some issues for builders, and it also increases the price of land. So not only do we have land prices going up, we have a supply shortage for workers, and they also have increased costs for materials. So that's why they're not going quite as crazy as they used to in 2005. And where they are building, what price ranges they're adding to are not necessarily under 200,000. So on this particular slide, the blue is under 200,000, light orange is between 200 and 300, dark orange is between 300 and 500,000, and green is over 500,000. So on the west side of town, you can see that the builders are focusing most of their efforts between the 200 and looks like the 350 range. 200 to 350 are where they're adding to supply there. In the east side, in Scottsdale, you can see they're solidly in the 300 to just over 500, looks like 800,000, 300, 800,000 in there. And then the Southeast Valley cities, which are going to include Ahwatukee and excluding Pinal County, they are solidly adding to supply in 300 to 500. And if you have a buyer wanting a new home under 2, you're going to go to Pinal County at this point. So in Pinal, that's where they're doing the most affordable homes there. So what that means for your sellers is that in these areas of town, those are the price points where they're going to have the most competition from your new construction, and those are the areas where the appreciation rates are going to be more subdued than in the others. So obviously under 200,000 we're seeing a lot of appreciation, and in the 300 to 500 range we're seeing more stable appreciation. So that's something that you're going to have to let your sellers know. But that brings us to our sales. And we are having a lot of those right now. That's what's actually bringing our supply down like it is that we have just about the same number of new listings coming on the market as we did this time last year, but we have way more sales happening. So in the metropolitan Phoenix area, we're up 10% as of this time last year in the number of closed sales. Comparing that by area, West Side is up 11%, Northeast 10%, is pretty much across the board, up 7% in Southeast Valley, and 16% in your Pinal County cities. So that's, Pinal actually has had the greatest percentage increase of everyone, mainly because they have more supply than other people do. By price point is where we see the biggest dramatic increase. Under 200,000, we're down 7%. Not surprising. You can't sell what isn't for sale. So without getting more listings under 200,000, it's going to be very difficult to increase your sales rates on that. But for those sales between 2 and 4, we're up 24%, up 26% between 4 and 600,000, and we're up 21% over 600,000. So what that means for realtors is that we have 10% more sales, and they're all higher priced. So a lot of people feeling really good about their budgets right now. A lot of commissions being made, and at this point the MLS is getting about, the last I checked, about 80% market share of all sales. So that brings us to our frenzy areas. So when you actually get that buyer and it's time to hit the streets, these are the areas that are having the most competition for what's active for sale. So when we look at the contract ratio by zip, we are so hot, we have 3 degrees of it, hot, hotter, and frenzy. These particular colors are just hotter and frenzy. So the frenzy ones, which are the darkest ones, they measure how many are active versus how many are in escrow waiting to close. And if it's dark, it means that we literally have more in escrow than what's active for sale. So say you have 100 listings, active for sale, you might have 120 waiting to close escrow. That's what we consider a frenzy. The lighter orange here is an almost frenzy. For every 100 listings you have in active for sale, you'll have 75 to 99 in escrow waiting to close. So those are almost frenzies. So when we look at this map, you can see the entire West Side, just about, and just about the entire Southeast Valley, minus South Tempe, minus Ahwatukee, and parts of East Mesa. And also Central Phoenix is, you can kind of see there's a little bit of Central Phoenix there, but a lot of that is also quite white or clear right now. But the new area of frenzy activity that was not there last year, West Side, we had that last year, was not a, that's not a surprise. Most of the Southeast Valley last year was also a frenzy at this time. It's grown some, but the new piece to really pop out this year is the Moon Valley area, right around 7th Street and Thunderbird, and the Point Tapatio. So you'll notice that you've got some very dark zip codes there right in the central area, and then you've got a lighter one right below that. And right in the middle is Sunny Slope, which is surrounded now by a number of frenzies. So we're keeping an eye on Sunny Slope. And if you're wondering what's causing this, you might like to look at the shape of this, which is our average sale price by zip code. All of these zip codes have an average sale price under 300,000. So when you look at the shape of the frenzy and look at the shape of your zip codes, you can pretty much gather that if you're in an area where the average sale price is under 300,000, it is going to be an experience to behold to get your listings under contract. So if you're a listing agent, this is awesome. If you're a buyer's agent, you just need to prep your buyers for, you know, what's to come. So when we look at the rest of it, this is including just the regular hot market. We now add South Tempe, Ahwatukee, East Mesa, and parts of Litchfield Park, Goodyear, Sun City, and the northern areas. So the vast majority of the valley, and even South Scottsdale and the 85260, 85254 zip codes in kind of mid-Scottsdale there, they're also quite hot. When we go into our warmer and colder areas, you'll notice that in the green, Now you've pulled in most of Scottsdale, Paradise Valley, the Biltmore area. So, and now also Gold Canyon. So is this 2005 all over again? Now the answer is no. We did have a jump up in March. If you'll notice, in 2017, we had a jump up in flash sales, which is a measure of how many closings in MLS we had where the cumulative days on market was either 1 or 0. So we're not anywhere close to 2005, which had a peak of 1,094. We had 215, which is still the most we've had in quite some time, but it's probably more in line with 2012 and 2013 than it is with 2005. So nothing to be too concerned there with there. But when it comes to our year-to-date sales, we have had one of the best years so far, and the last 4 years have not been as high as this particular year. And we're not close to 2005, but we are doing better than 2004. So that gives you a little bit of perspective. And we're still not as high as we were in 2011 and 2012. So the only difference there is that in 2011 and 12, you may or may not have had like toilets, kitchens, wiring, plumbing, those kinds of things, or kind of optional back then. Today, you actually have livable homes. So in terms of quantity of homes sold, you can imagine that the sale prices in 2011 and 12 were much, much lower than they are now. And so really, the only year that we're chasing in terms of year-to-date sales is 2005. And we're almost there. So this last March was a very impressive March. It was in the 2000s anyway, we had the third best month. But in terms of normal sales, we had the second best month, only second to 2005 in terms of March sales. And as you can see, we have very few foreclosures and short sales and HUD homes in our mix now compared to 2011, which was probably one of our highest percentage points there. Another difference between 2005 and 6 and now is the number of cash sales that we have. Back when financing was very popular, 100% financing or more, we had only 6% of all the transactions closing were cash sales, which meant that everybody, investors and luxury, all those people were getting loans. By 2011, nobody could qualify for a loan, so investors were using cash, 42%. That was a very high percentage for cash transactions. And now we're back down to a normal level of 22% in terms of cash sales. And what that means is you just have a way more stable base of people with equity. And over time, since 2010, really, we've seen most of the purchases with a high level of equity. And that's what's going to make a big difference if there's any kind of shift in the marketplace. Also, a big difference, as we discussed earlier in the webinar, is the annual rate of appreciation. And so back in 2005, we had a 45% increase in a year in prices, but now we're only at about 7%, and we've been hanging out there right around between 5 and 7% since 2015. The next biggest year was in 2012 at 29%, but again, those homes were so low, there was a lot of fix and flip activity happening, not quite the same as appreciation. So in terms of stability, we're way more stable now than we were in 2005. And so just real briefly, here are some things that are important to know if somebody is concerned about why this is a different market. First of all, we don't have the 100% financing that we had before. 2017 is dominated by down payments, which give new buyers a built-in equity at the start. Interest only is not dominating the market. It's mostly principal and interest, which means they build equity over time. Adjustable rates in the past, which made many payments unaffordable as the rates increased. Now rate increases don't affect payments now because most of the purchases had fixed rates. We have more cash transactions now. Appraisers no longer are pressured by commissioned agents for valuations. They are only answering to the underwriters, which makes them much less apt to be pressured by anybody and increasing along those lines. Unstable buyers versus more stable buyers today. a lot of times, in most of them in 2005, there was no intent to occupy. That's a false demand. They were only looking for a place to park their money. Now people actually need a place to live. So the people who are buying properties today either intend to rent it out or to live in it themselves. So that is probably the biggest difference between today and 2005, is that there are fewer people just looking to park their money. And also, don't forget those double escrows from 2005 where people used to buy and sell the same house on the same day. That does not happen today with mandatory wait times. And our job growth has also changed. So in terms of stability of our employment base, we've got our job growth is in healthcare, financial, and tech industries, which are more diversified and less cyclical than the real estate, construction, and tourism industries that we used to rely on back in 2005. So going forward, we look at our price trends. Many times people think that interest rates affect our prices, and there are many people in the news media who state that, interest rates took a big bump up, and therefore fewer people will qualify, and with fewer people qualifying, that means that prices will go down. Well, that's not how interest rates work. I'll tell you that right now. Prices depend on both supply and demand, and interest rates only affect 50% of that equation, which is demand. And it's one of 8 other indicators that can fluctuate in terms of affecting price. So you can have interest rates go up, but then maybe incomes also go up. Maybe interest rates go up, but then our inbound relocation also comes up. So you cannot look at interest rates alone and expect to have an immediate response on pricing. And in terms of where we are in price right now, if we had followed the long-term historical appreciation rate right around 2 to 3%, which is the rate of inflation historically, we would be right where we are supposed to be right now. So pretend you fell asleep in 2002 and all of those years in between were just a big, long, horrible dream, and we woke up right now, we would be where we would have been anyway. We wouldn't have known anything had ever happened. So we would have to go up another 26% to match the peak of 2006 pricing. And when you look at the trajectory of our appreciation versus the trajectory of 2005, it is completely different. It's not the same. What does make a difference, though, is your price point. So clearly appreciation rates are going to vary by the price point that your listing is in, and those that are between 125 and 175,000 are getting the largest percentage gains of 7% or more, and also between 175 to looks like about 275. Those are the second highest gains. Not nearly as many new homes going up in those price points, but then you get over 275, and that's where the new home market really shows that it's making an impact. It is balancing out those appreciation rates, and they are following more of a balanced line between 275 all the way up to about $1 million. We're looking at rates that are just right around, slightly better than the rate of inflation or at the rate of inflation. So, and then of course our luxury market is a whole different animal. You get over $1 million, and it's generally more stable, although the over $3 million will jump around a lot because we don't have as many transaction counts in that price point. Our median sale price right now is $235 in the MLS. Again, it'd have to go up another 12% to reach the median of $265 from 2006. And what we're noticing here is that your prices are not going up, or price per square foot is going up faster than your median home sale price. So what that means is that your median is more like a budget. 50% sell below that number, 50% sell above that number. And when that goes flat, it just means that the budgets of your buyers are not going up as fast as the prices of homes. And so what they end up doing is buying smaller homes. And this is also where your interest rate comes into effect. Interest rates affect the affordability aspect. And so it doesn't necessarily mean that fewer people will qualify. We're having plenty of people qualify, but they're having to qualify for smaller homes as the prices go up. So for the first time in quite a few years, we're seeing the average mid-size home, the median size home goes down. 1,700 square feet, still the most popular size home. However, some good parts of our market, equity positions of existing sellers are going up, so more and more sellers have equity in their home, and can sell if they need to, not like 2005 where if they need to sell, they were maxed out and had no equity. So this really helps mitigate any risks of foreclosure and short sale going forward. And also it's very good for those lenders who want to do equity loans. So for those sellers who are finding out that they can't move up, and with all the equity they have, a lot of times they find out they can move laterally and not necessarily move up. So what some people are doing is just fixing up the home that they have. Our population has been growing. We hit a milestone, estimated milestone, right around March 22nd of 4.7 million people. So the number of units, we do need to see more building happening. We do have the population to support it. It is not fake demand. So rising populations are generally also very good for overall economic output. And again, this is probably the last big year for boomerang buyers. So this is where a lot of our demand is coming from right now as well. 2010 was the biggest year, right around 51,000 foreclosures happened in 2010, and so 2008, 2009, 2010 combined was the big bulk of our foreclosure market. So many of those foreclosures have now come off of credit scores, and now those people are free to get conventional loans. 2011 is the last year. We had a big boost in the first quarter, but then it's going to start dropping off second quarter of 2018. Sales per month in terms of short sales, 2013 4-year wait is the worst case scenario for short sale to purchase after short sale. So we are pretty much through the short sale boomerang buyers. So enjoy them right now. That's what's creating a lot of demand to purchase, and should start to wane off next year sometime. And finally, our employment. The population that's employed has grown quite a bit since 2005. Actually, we went up from 2001, we had 1.6 million. Now we're at about 2.1 million. Even at the peak of 2007, before we had our unemployment crisis, we were at 1.9. So now we've surpassed that. So 2.1 million people in the workforce right now, 4.3% unemployment. That is also helping a lot of people qualify, because now you do need a job to get a loan, and that was not always the case in 2005. And where the people are coming from, right now in Arizona, this was a study done by United Van Lines, and we have a net increase inbound. We had 57% of their all their moves that dealt with Arizona. 57% were coming into Arizona, and only 43% were leaving, so that's good. And the majority of them, 40%, were coming for a job, and 30% were coming for retirement. And also a big majority of them were over the age of 55 and also making over $100,000. So all of that is very good for us. The age group of over 55 is something that we, obviously we're a very good retirement area. However, we would like to see some more millennials, more younger people moving in here, just basically, for our market 20 years from now. It would be really nice to have a younger group coming in. In terms of the country, we are competing with the Pacific Northwest. They have more moving going towards them in terms of job growth, where we have a nice balance of retirement and job growth. All right, so just to wrap it up, and thank you guys for hanging with us during their technical difficulties, but this is our last big year for boomerang buyers. So if you are going after that group, keep working those credit counseling agencies, finding those people who have their repaired credit. More millennials are finally buying. They're getting up to a point where they're having families and they're moving out to areas such as Gilbert and Queen Creek areas, Laveen areas. Those are very popular for young families. Our Phoenix metropolitan area is growing, especially in the employed population, which is good. And also expect our appreciation to continue to be positive in the short term, especially going forward this year. So at this point, we're not seeing any slowdown, no sharp increases or decreases in that line. And one thing I didn't cover is seller concessions. Ironically enough, even though we are in a frenzy, 30% of all sales under $300,000 had a seller concession involved. So just because it's a frenzy doesn't mean that sellers are not paying for home warranties. They're not helping with closing costs. They are absolutely doing that. And underwater homeowners getting closer to the surface, and accidental landlords as a result are getting closer to being able to unload those rentals that they never wanted to have. They just wanted to avoid a foreclosure or short sale. So those are what I recommend you go after if you're looking for listings. Just find those people who are just getting closer and closer to being able to unload their home. So
great.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tina. I heard on NPR last week, I guess, where they were talking about millennials wanting to buy, but there's not enough inventory because Gen Xers aren't moving. So do you find that's true in the data for this area?
I think what we're finding is actually millennials are competing with the retirement crowd. Actually, really? There is a downsizing trend at the same time. So we are seeing aging populations in the luxury industry as well, mostly actually, where they're taking their big home and they're wanting to downsize into a smaller home. And of course, that's the same playground as the millennials, and so they're finding themselves having to compete with more older buyers, more established buyers with bigger down payments and things like that. And the older generation or the baby boomers want to live in the same areas too because they like to have fun. They want to be close to the same area, the restaurants, the things to do. So it's kind of an issue right now. And what it's creating is an oversupply of homes in the outskirts of town, especially North Scottsdale, and a shortage of homes in town, especially around Central Phoenix.
Great. So we have some time for questions. If anybody has any, if you're still with us.
We have a few people who hung in there.
So if you have any questions, just type it in the question box. And
all right. Well, a lot of times I answer a lot of people's questions in one fell swoop. But yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. So thanks, Tina, for coming in.
My pleasure.
And for those of you that hung in, thank you for that. We are recording, so those of you who weren't able to wait us out on our technical glitch, I'll have the full recording up and available sometime next week. Also, next week, we are having the Smart Start Social Media and Building Your Business webinar on the 26th, so we hope to see you then. And thank you and have a great day.
Oh, we have a couple of questions.
Oh, actually, if you have time, we have a couple of questions.
We do not, we have a question here, any figures for the Flagstaff area? We do not cover Flagstaff at the Cromford Report. We are limited to the Arizona Regional MLS, so hopefully someday if we ever get a statewide MLS, we'll be able to include the rest of the Arizona. And
do you know when your next report will be as far as the next set of data that you have?
Oh, my next presentation? Hold on. I don't always memorize my calendar, but I will be speaking next week in the Southeast Valley, and I will also be in Scottsdale. So Wednesday is the Southeast Valley at, bear with me, I will be at Ocotillo Village Health Club and Spa on 4200 South Amiskell Road at 2 o'clock, and RSVP to Old Republic title for that. And also I will be at the Scottsdale Association at 2 o'clock on Thursday, also sponsored by Old Republic title. And that is, both of those will be 30-minute presentations in conjunction with other speakers.
Now we've got questions flooding in. So have you noticed rental rates? Are they changing along with sale rates?
Rentals have pretty much leveled off at this point. We haven't seen any huge growth in the rentals over the last 3 or 4 months. They've been stable. They've been still high, but not growing at this point.
Okay. And as far as sales, do you think that trend-wise, is there anything in the data that's indicating a dip in the future?
Well, nothing that is going to be non-seasonal dips. Okay. We expect to see, this is our peak season, and expect to see it go down in the summer like it usually does, and it will continue to go down. So right now, we expect this particular heat to be for the next 2 months. So the rest of April, maybe halfway into June, and then it will start to decline. So if you've got a buyer trying to looking for a little bit of relief, tell them to go out in the summer. And if you have a seller wanting to time the market, they better hurry up if they're trying to get their listing on at the peak.
All right, it looks like that is...
We've got a lot of them. Has flipping come to an end? No, there are a lot of flips happening, especially along the I-17 and in Moon Valley are very hot right now for flips. And let's see.
Do you have any numbers for the Levine area? Or?
I do. Levine is also one of our very hot areas. I don't have numbers off the top of my head, but Levine, along with most of the west side, is extremely hot due to their price point and the availability of homes for sale. So let me think, is there anything else in here? Economic fall. We're not seeing anything due to effects of Syria at this point. That type of issue, especially when it comes to things that might affect, say, the stock market, that affect the upper end more than they affect the rest of us. The rest of the market, I would say, under 500,000 will not react to national events quite that much. But if you have people with international exposure on their investments, then that can definitely affect our luxury market, which is right now stable.
Great. All right, hopefully we have answered all of your questions. Looks like it.
And if you have it, you can always shoot us an email at support@cromfordreport.com. And a lot of times if we get more than one question, we start the same question over time, then we'll start putting that in our daily observations and working them into our market updates as well.
Great, wonderful. Well, thank you very much.
And I see Kara's question regarding overbuilding with apartments in Central Phoenix, and I can address that later. Do you want to do that
later?
Now,
nope, later is fine too.
Okay, well, there has been a lot of concern about overbuilding, especially in the multifamily market in Central Phoenix. My opinion and the opinion of many other analysts are that we do absolutely need the units. That is not a question. We have a lot of people moving here, and they need a place to live. The main question is whether or not we need 400 square feet for $500,000. Now, the cost of those is, we'll have to see how many of them that they actually sell, but there seems to be a lot of optimism in that luxury condo market, especially since they're attracting the high-tech industry and a lot of San Francisco companies. And some of these condos look cheap compared to San Francisco. However, the sustainability of that is something that we're watching. But as far as the units go, we're not concerned about the building of them at all. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.
You too.